Hello, welcome to IPDay's Tech Tuesday. Today we're going to be talking about free and low-cost assistive technology, aka AT, to support our students' reading and writing. My name is Kate Redmond. Super excited to be here with you. I'm an IPDay subject matter expert, been working with IPDay for 2 very fun years, and I'm also the founder and CEO of Light and Salt Learning. We make free and low cost resources for GED students and their instructors. If you have any questions about any of the things I talk about today, feel free to shoot me an email. That's kredman@floridaipday.org. All right, just some housekeeping things to remember. You should be muted right now. Nobody's able to talk. You're in listen only mode. And so if you'd like to participate, got some questions I'll be asking you and such today, you can go ahead and drop it in the chat. So let's use the chat today. And we will be recording the presentation as usual. It's going to be archived and it's going to be up on that IPDay website within the next 48 hours. It will join the handbook and the presentation that's already up there for today. Our agenda today, what are we looking at doing? First thing we are going to discuss is the individual reading and writing skills that our students need to be adept with. Then we'll look at the concept of assistive technology and how it fits into the big picture of universal design for learning. We'll look at some Chrome extensions and how they can provide some ready-made UDL for your classroom. And then finally, we will do a deep dive into some of the reading and writing skills. There's so many of them, we won't have time to cover everything today, but we're going to look at a few of them and some featured assistive technology maybe that can help your students. All right, sounds like a lot. We'll see how much we get through. Let's go. So the task at hand, talking reading and writing skills. What tasks do our students need to complete in order to be successful at reading and writing? Well, here's some of the tasks that we can support and develop in our students. The first is just decoding text, being able to read the words as they stand. This is before understanding them, but just being able to pronounce them, to say them aloud. Then we have building vocabulary. What do those words mean? Do we understand what they represent? Engaging with text, that ability to treat a passage like a conversation. Reading comprehension, of course, understanding what you read. Identifying those main ideas. Boy, is that hard for our students, right? What's the point of this writing? Paraphrasing and summarizing, taking what the author has to say, putting it into your own words, whether that is in entirety or it is just pulling out the main idea. Analyzing arguments is the main skill on the RLA essay, but of course it comes up all the time in academics and in life, so it really doesn't matter if your student's taking the GED or has another goal. Analyzing arguments is an important skill. Drafting, I'm talking about drafting writing, so writing first drafts or rough drafts, and then editing and proofreading, that ability to refine our writing until it is ready to be presented. So, first time for the chat, can you think of any more reading and writing skills that our students need for the classroom? Go ahead and if you have some in mind, type that in the chat. Did I pretty well cover it all? Uh, Fluency. Oh, absolutely. I didn't mention fluency, that ability to read at a natural pace and cadence. Beautiful. Identification of unfamiliar words in context. Absolutely. So we're looking at vocabulary there, but the specific skill. Nice. Thank you. I'll get one more if somebody's got one for me. Brainstorming, absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and when I talk about drafting, I'll talk about brainstorming. But you're right that they're overlapping skills, but not exactly the same. Oh, I said I would only do one more, but hello, making inferences is such a challenge for our students, isn't it? And it's an important skill. Nice job. Thank you, you guys. All right. So, what are our barriers that our students have to executing those tasks? Well, we've got the usual suspects, as I call them. Looking at some disabilities will affect our students' abilities to, or our students executing those tasks we talked about. Learning disabilities are a big one. Developmental disabilities, of course, are can be a struggle. ADHD doesn't really fit into either of those categories, but we know it certainly affects our students' task execution, as does mental illness. There's the usual in our classrooms, those gaps in education, how many of our students experience that. And then trauma. Trauma actually presents in the classroom like learning disabilities. So they behave very similarly. Other factors that inhibit our reading and writing skills, we have, of course, reading speed. If you read slowly, it can make it hard to focus. Distractions, things going on in the classroom. We know many of our students are easily distracted. There's usually a lot going on. Disinterest. Interest is remarkable. It affects, sorry, reading comprehension remarkably. So, how do we get our students into maybe passages they wouldn't usually be interested in? Focus is a big one. Typing speed, if your speed can't keep up with if your fingers can't keep up with your brain, you're going to have trouble with that drafting and brainstorming like we talked about. Pattern recognition, that's going to affect your decoding. Executive function, so I'll slow down there. Hopefully, we know what executive function is, but executive function is really big. It's the overarching skills that kind of keep you on a task, help you to start a task, to finish a task. And there's a lot that goes, I could spend all day talking about executive function. I, in fact, have a whole AT for just executive function presentation I do. Limited technology skills certainly affect our students. I had one of my students that I always think about because he didn't make it with me online when COVID hit, but he could not double click a mouse. That was the level of tech skills sometimes that we have in our classroom. And then learned helplessness is a big deal. So if you're not familiar with learned helplessness, it's an actual thing. And basically, the more times you struggle with no control over the struggle, the more it teaches your brain, why bother? Why even try? My effort produces nothing. And so our students can really struggle with learned helplessness. And all of these things can affect their reading and writing. All right, so now let's get to the good news. Yay! Looking at assistive technology and universal design. So let's start with just what is assistive technology. It's literally any tool that supports the user in completing a task. And I'm sorry that that might be kind of just a generic catch-all phrase, but really assistive technology is a big, huge category of lots of goodies. We won't obviously look at them all today, but there's so many different tools that our students can use and we can use to complete our reading and writing tasks. So it doesn't have to be expensive. We're going to look at a lot of free ones today, and it doesn't have to be electronic. We will be looking at digital ones today, but I'm also going to bring up some of the good old-fashioned handheld ones as well. So, some examples of assistive technology. Let's start big with maybe what you would think about a communication device. If you have a nonverbal student, they have one of those boards that they use to talk for them. That's an example of a communication device. Yes, those ones are big, expensive, and electronic. But closed captioning, that's readily available to us on YouTube, on TV. That's an example of assistive technology. Even just a ruler, taking a ruler or on a computer, a line that you could take down the screen as you read is an example of very helpful for many students, assistive technology. A pencil grip, that's one I use. I have hand issues and talk about low cost. Colored overlay is another great one I would encourage you to have in your classrooms. Just having plastic sheets that are various colors that tint the page can help some students with reading. Large print books, or even just increasing the size of the font on the computer is an example of AT. I hope I'm getting the point through that assistive technology doesn't have to be anything really complex. How many of you guys use this assistive technology? Reading glasses. I know I need them. The first day that I needed like four chins to read was a shocking day. But picked up those reading glasses. Earplugs are an example of assistive technology, again, that I would encourage you to have in every classroom. If you've ever been in a presentation with me, I say it all the time that recommend you have earplugs and noise canceling headphones right there available, like next to your sign-in sheet. So it's just normalized to pick them up if we're going to do any kind of a writing activity, any kind of a testing activity, those, even just doing your math work. Can be a game changer for students. Speech to text is another readily available one. We all use it on our phones nowadays. I was practicing this presentation earlier and I made the mistake of saying HEY Siri, and she started talking back to me. But you tell your phone to text mom, and you're using speech to text. Okay, but today the main ones we're going to be looking at are some Chrome extensions, as they're called. And so in chat, we'll talk more about Chrome extensions, but I've got a question for you now. So in chat, I want to know, what AT are you already using in your classroom to support students in the area of reading and writing? And yeah, as Sandra pointed out already in the chat, it doesn't need to be fancy to be assistive. So what AT are you already using in your classroom? I want to hear, and who has access to these tools? Uh, oh, I have not heard of this one. Look, if you talk tech tools, you always have new ones. Moat for feedback. I've not heard of Moat. Is it a Chrome extension? Is it an app? What is it? Tell us more about that one, because if you like it, I bet a bunch of other people will too. It's a Chrome extension that allows you to record feedback. I love it. Cindy, a magnifier is, of course, yeah, a simple example of AT that can make such a big difference. And don't forget to answer for me, who has access to these tools? Anybody else? I know there's not only two of you guys using assistive technology in your classroom. Okay. Well, oh, I got another one that I'm not heard of. Andrea Wayground. Is it a Chrome extension? What is it? Share. If so, right now we have Moat for giving feedback is a new tool, and Wayground. Loom for recording videos. Yeah, that's a great one. Some of you guys are using AT more than others. Okay. I'm going to move on from here. Thank you guys. Okay. So, what is universal design for learning? Well, not just in my opinion, in the research, universal design for learning is the best practice. So, I asked you to think about who has access to these tools in your classroom. The idea of universal design for learning is that everyone has access to the tools they need. So, universal design alone, just the general concept of it, is that idea that we design things to be usable by all people to the greatest extent possible without the need for adaptation or specialized design. So we're not trying to go on a case by case basis, a student by student basis, and introduce new things into our classroom. We're all there, they're all available. So in the case of UDL, which is the specific universal design for learning, we're looking at that framework there that makes teaching and learning best for everyone based on what we know about the human brain. And it introduces the idea that we have tools for three things: for getting information, for practicing it or processing information, and then for expressing or demonstrating what you know. And it provides various tools to aid students in that and makes them open and available for all students. So having your AT available for all is best practice. That's the idea of universal design for learning. All right. So the great thing is Chrome extensions are ready-made UDL. They're available to everyone. They're already out there. So what is a Chrome extension? They're basically just apps and they're available and they get attached to your Chrome web browser so that whenever you're signed into your Chrome web browser, they're usable there. They can modify your Chrome, they can adapt it, they can provide extra functions. They're personal to each Google account, so you can check out different options with your students and they can add the ones they want, turn them on and off as they desire. So they have all the functionality that they want. And you're not choosing who gets what, your students are choosing who gets what, and they're really in charge there. They're available at the Chrome Web Store. So just like there's a app store on your phone, there's an app store for Chrome. And they're accessed by signing into Chrome. They're going to be consistent across various computers. So whatever extensions your student has installed, it doesn't matter if they're signing into the computer in your classroom or in a computer lab or at home, they're going to be able to access those tools that they've chosen and that they're comfortable with. Their toolbox, if you may. And of course, like everything with apps, there's free ones, totally free ones, lots of them actually. There's freemium ones where some features are free and other features are paid. And then there's just straight up paid extensions, which we won't be looking at any paid extensions today. However, there are some that are well worth it, like look into Equatio. It's gorgeous for math. So I won't poo-poo the paid ones, but it's just not our focus today. So how do you find and install those Chrome extensions? Well, first thing you go to the Chrome Web Store. It's at chromewebstore.google.com now. I never remember this URL. I had to look it up for today. I usually just Google Chrome extensions, you guys, so you can go that way too. But you select extensions at the top left of the screen. And then from there, you can browse those accessibility extensions, or this is important, you can search by functionality. So as we look at extensions today, we're really going to focus in on what function they provide for the student, what skill or task they help them to execute, because tech, as you guys know, is an ever-changing field. I mean, you guys just taught me about two Chrome extensions that I have not used yet, and they're constantly evolving. New ones appear. I've been doing presentations on Chrome extensions in AT for 7 years now, and every time I do a presentation, I end up looking for more, finding new ones. So it's just an ever evolving world. So really important that you have this idea in mind that I'm not looking for a particular tool, I'm looking for a particular task to accomplish, and that's how you search for them. Once you find the ones you want, you just add them to Chrome, and then you use this puzzle icon that's at the top right of your screen on Chrome. So hopefully you guys can see that there. I just learned how to use this, speaking of assistive technology, a laser pointer. So there's the puzzle icon right there in my picture of my Chrome browser. And then from there, you can also pin your favorite extension. So you can see I have a couple of these extensions pinned in my browser. I have Helper Bird, which we'll look at today, and Speechify, which is a lovely text-to-speech app or text-to-speech extension. Let's see if I can turn the laser pointer off now, you guys. There we go. All right. So let's look at, we won't have time to look at every possible reading and writing task today. We only have an hour together, but I'm going to look at a few important ones and some assistive technology for them. So task one, let's look at decoding text. So decoding, like we said, is the ability to read those individual words. It involves a lot of components, okay? First one, just vision. We have eye gaze, being able to flow over the text at the right rate and pick up the right chunk of text at a time. Symbolic processing, the ability to make meaning out of the symbols you see. Phonics, sounding out sounds and knowing what the different letter combination sounds makes. Syllabics, the ability to break word into syllables. Phonics and breaking words into syllables are inextricably linked. The way we pronounce it is based on the syllable type. And so that's an important skill that a lot of students struggle with. So what technology, assistive technology, should we search for if we're looking to help our students decode? Well, the first, maybe most obvious one is text to speech or screen readers. Those are the apps, and there's dozens and dozens of Chrome extensions that do this. If you just type in text to speech or type in screen readers, you'll come up with many. But it just reads the speech aloud for you. And they have various levels of helpfulness. Some of them sound more or less like robots. Um, so, but they're getting better and better all the time. You talked about how tech evolves. Oh my goodness. The improvement on screen readers and text to speech in the 7 years I've been doing this is marketed. They used to all sound like robots. PDF scanners are a great one. They even have this in just your Google, what's it called? Google Files. No, Google Drive. There we go. Hello, Kate. Um, Even within your Google Drive, you can do this, but there's phone apps where you can scan PDFs or scan any kind of text and turn it into a PDF. Then once it's turned into a PDF, we can blow it up. We can use a screen reader. So those are great. Audiobooks, of course. Video content, of course, is useful. So we're getting that text in or we're getting our information in an auditory form. Remember, we talked about UDL is that ability to get information is the first step in different forms. And so I like pairing the video content with the closed captioning because then we're working on our reading skills even as we're getting the information that we need. Straight edges or line highlighters are a big one, and there's a ton of Chrome extensions with this. Viewing windows. Um, You can even, do I have this with, no, okay. So a viewing window is just it's helping with that eye gaze to only picture so much of the text at a time. And so you can even make a viewing window with an index card and just cut out a rectangle in the middle of an index card, and a student can scan that along. And then as they improve, you can pull out the size of it and make a bigger and bigger viewing window. And that's one way to kind of work students up to where they need to be. Readability apps. When I talk about readability, this is another one that's all through Chrome extensions. We're just talking about making the text on the screen easier to read. So it does a lot of different things. A readability app, one things that they often do is remove distractions. So they'll take off ads, they'll take off pictures, they'll just make your text like a chunk of text. They will increase the space between lines or decrease the number of words on a line. There's a lot of different things readability apps can do for your students. They can even change the font. Like there's fonts such as Open Dyslexic that can make it easier for some students to read. So readability apps do a ton of different stuff, and we'll be seeing one of those today. Apps that indicate syllables. Again, you can't pronounce a word if you can't break it into syllables with those multisyllabic words. So if you can have an app that'll indicate or break up the syllables for the student, that can help them so they can just focus on the phonics and pronouncing the words. Okay, so little example here. Helperbird is a readability app that is super useful, a readability Chrome extension. So you can put this one on. This is probably the app for reading and writing that I use most often. So if you want to check out any of the ones we're looking at today, I highly recommend Helperbird. It does a lot. It's one of those freemium ones that some of the things are free and some of the things are paid, but its extent of free resources are very useful. What we're going to look at today is how you can use Helperbird to break a word into syllables. To turn the syllable function on in Helperbird, first click on the Helperbird icon to open up your menu. From there, you want the immersive reader. This will make the text easy to read already, spacing it out. It's great for distractions. But in Immersive Reader, there's a little wand icon up at the top that says Grammar Options. Click that, and you can turn on syllables. And then it'll put a dot in between each one of the syllables, making it easier for struggling students to sound out new words. All right, lovely.
To turn
Um,
the syllable.
whoops. So helper bird is not the only Chrome extension that will break words into syllables. It's just one of the simplest, and I like the dot. So, all right, next task, building vocabulary. And we'll look at some assistive technology for this skill. So first of all, let's start with a quiz. And you don't have to answer this one in chat, but just think to yourself. According to the National Institute of Health, by age 20, the average American knows about how many words? Do you think 12,000, 22,000, 32,000, or 42,000? Make your choices. Correct answer is D, 42,000 words. Now, the way that we define a word, this question's actually a little harder to answer than you'd think because the way that we define a word is a little different. So you can go into depth about the National Institute of Health and how they break words and define what they call a lemma. But the long and short of it is 42,000 words. So that's a lot of words. And I think that that's the average, but some of our students come in below that. And so they definitely need some assistance with building that vocabulary. So assistive technology we can search for if that's what our goal is. Of course, there's dictionaries and definitions online, thesaurus and synonyms. We're used to those. And certainly a lot of those readability apps like Help a Bird, for example, has them built in. There's text to speech. A lot of times our students' spoken vocabulary is larger than what their reading one is. So if they just hear it, they're like, oh, I do know that word. Word prediction is a great one. So we have that on our phone nowadays. If you're texting, we get word prediction all the time. So it's readily available. Even when I'm writing emails nowadays, I get that nice word prediction. Vocabulary banks. This one can be an app, but you can also use just a handwritten vocabulary bank. So, for example, if I had my science students doing a writing on something about the planets, I could have a printout of a vocabulary bank with various words in it that they might want to include in their writing. And then it just kind of jogs their memory and it doesn't write for them, but it just gives them mm, that little extra support. One of my favorites is to have a vocabulary notebook. I often, almost always, have my students have a notebook that they're keeping throughout the semester where we're adding in new words that we got in context. We talked about interpreting words in context. And part of what we do include in there is the context, the sentence that they found the word in. Of course, flashcards, whether physical or virtual, it can be helpful. Graphic organizers, again, I use a graphic organizer for social studies where we collect unfamiliar vocabulary in those primary documents. And Lexile level adjusters, and there are these in Chrome extensions. They will actually take a reading and bring down the Lexile level, or there's whole websites that do it as well. Word clouds are great for vocabulary. They can help students focus in. As we know, there's a lot of words in the English language. Which ones do they actually need to know? So by inserting chunks of text into a word cloud generator, they can see which words come up repeatedly. And obviously, those ones would be more important to learn than others. All right, so highlighted tool. This one's a lovely Chrome extension that I like. It's Magoosh. This is one of the new ones that I found that I really liked. So if you install Magoosh and you have it turned on your Chrome, every time you open a new tab on Chrome, then it'll pop up a new word with a definition, the pronunciation, the part of speech, and then, oh, that lovely context, the word used in a sentence. And then from there, if you do use those vocabulary notebooks or banks or flashcards, the students can go ahead and add those to them. So this was one that came up for me as I was browsing. I liked it, aesthetic. All right, next task, engaging with the text. Oh, Spoiler alert, this one is my favorite tool that we're coming to. Okay, so what is engaging with the text? A reader who doesn't engage runs the risk of understanding little to nothing of what they've read. So we know that this is an issue with our students very frequently, the whole I read it, but I don't get it crowd, where they go through the whole text, they've read the whole thing, they get to the end of it, it's like they never read it. They don't remember what it says, or they didn't understand much of what it says. And so the real key to understanding what you read is they call it active reading. I call it engaging with the text, that kind of talking back idea. So we can predict, question, connect to prior knowledge, paraphrase, summarize, organizing what we read will do it. Or I call it just talking back to the text, like having a conversation with the text two-way. I mean, it's an internal conversation usually, but yes. So all of those things can be hard to get our students to do. So we can search for some assistive technology to help them do that. One of them is highlighters. Okay, so worth addressing highlighters because I got the complaint recently that people do not let their students use highlighters because they just highlight everything. So that makes it worth discussing that assistive technology, using it like any other thing, is a skill. And so if your students are struggling with highlighters, I don't think the answer is abandon highlighters or highlighting apps. I think the answer is to teach your students how to effectively utilize a highlighter. How do I know what to highlight? And that's a skill to demonstrate, and that's a skill to practice. Whiteboards or scratch paper. This might sound silly. Is this really assistive technology? Any tool, you guys. So using a piece of scratch paper to organize, to talk back to the text as we go is assistive technology. And it's the one that they do get. If your students are taking a standardized test, they do get either scratch paper or a whiteboard. And so teach them to use it in order to be active readers as they go. They're not going to use it unless they've used it before, right? They're not going to do it come test day unless it's already a skill that they've developed. And so normalizing this, I think, is useful. Again, it's like I think graphic organizers do everything, you guys. They kind of do. But we can use graphic organizers to help them learn to organize information. There's the old-fashioned outlining, of course, but that can be challenging for students. So, readability apps, I showed you Help a Bird, so that's a great example of a readability app, but that will help students engage with the text more, especially if you can clear out distractions. Focus apps. So there's a lot of focus apps in Chrome extensions. There's timers that you can use, like the Pomodoro timer. There are apps that make it so you can't open any web pages or you can't open certain web pages while you're working. I use all of these because I have raging ADHD, you guys. There are ones that make it so you won't get notifications, like for example on your phone. You can use all kinds of focus apps, and I highly recommend you and your students do. Again, earplugs, so simple, but such can make such a big difference. And those noise canceling headphones, either one, it doesn't matter. And of course, text to speech. A lot of times, students who are just reading alone are not going to be as engaged as if they are listening and reading at the same time. Same thing with audiobooks. All right, here's my favorite Chrome extension that I'm sharing today. It's called Insert Learning. So Insert Learning lets you turn any web page you want into an interactive learning experience. You take it from a static web page into something you can use as a lesson. And so you can use this to create active reading experiences, to create these engagements with the text for your students. All right, so here's a little demo of me using that. With Insert Learning, I can turn any web page into an interactive reading experience for students. So for example, I just went to the Bill of Rights Institute and pulled up the Bill of Rights, the first 10 constitutional amendments, and I can go ahead and insert questions here. So I'm going to select insert a question, click on the First Amendment. If I wanted to, I could get a stem here, summarize the text, yada yada, but I've got a question that I want. I want them to name the 5 rights guaranteed by the First Amendment. Beautiful. And I'll create. And then I think for the Second Amendment, let's go ahead and put in another question. I think let's have them paraphrase the previous sentence. Nice. Create that. And then I can also do discussions, insert a discussion. So why do you think the founders thought this important enough to include in the Bill of Rights? Create. Once I have all my active reading prompts that I want in there, the things to get them to stop reading and think about what they're reading, then I can go ahead and assign this to a class with my more options. So I'm going to assign this to students. And I already created a class to organize this, Kate's GED class. But all I have to do then is grab the link. So I can copy the link to a lesson. I don't have to use Google Classroom. And then I can email that to my students.
Nice. So yes, using insert learning, we can add highlights, sticky notes, questions, discussions, and share using either Google Classroom or a link. And so we can really create these active learning um, scenarios for our students. So Paul dropped in chat another tool called Live Ink that works with visual syntactic text processing. And no, I've not heard of it. So apparently it's by an ophthalmologist and it improves eye movement. So thank you for sharing that with everybody, Paul. And people are dropping in great resources into the chat. So, okay.
With in
Okay, next skill we're going to look at identifying main ideas and assistive technology to support that developing skill. So students may struggle to what? Hierarching ideas, just what is most important. This is the skill like we used to use. Does anybody even teach making outlines anymore? I can't think of a more valuable study skill for me as I was going through college as making outlines. I used it all the time, that hierarchying information, and it's something that our students really struggle with. So I know just teaching them to outline can be challenging. Distinguishing the main idea from supporting details. This is a test taking skill, but it's also a life skill, right? Again, that's related to hierarchying, but sifting out that minor or extraneous information. If you have a student who struggles to take notes, this is very likely what's going on. Either this or they can't listen and write notes at the same time. We have that too. But this, I don't know what to write down because I don't know what's important. You know, it all seems of equal weight to me. So, assistive technology we can use for identifying main ideas. Graphic organizers. There I go with the graphic organizers again, you guys. By the way, I do have graphic organizers for a lot of these tasks we're talking about. So I already said that you could email me, but if anybody's interested in any of the ones I have, kredman@floridaipday.org. There is a Chrome extension called TLDR It, Too Long Didn't Read It, that will help students summarize long readings or passages. Highlighters, again, of course, we need to know how to use them. Just, I mean, one thing to teach your students is just the standard format of academic writing. Just knowing where you usually find a topic sentence can help. Control F to find repeated words or phrases, or using a word cloud generator to find repeated words and phrases can help students. I use the word cloud generator a lot, where you just put in the text and it brings up repeats. Because if a word comes up 5 times in the passage, it's very likely a main idea. And then what if you're seeing synonyms in that word cloud, words that mean the same thing? That can really help you identify main ideas as well.
Okay, so great tool is Viva Highlighter. This is another one of our Chrome extensions you can add to Chrome. So what does Viva Highlighter do? It highlights in various colors. You can add notes to any of the highlighter. You can designate different colors for different purposes. And you can organize those highlights in folders by color or topic. So here's a little demo of Weaver Highlighter.
Once you have Weave Highlighter installed, all you have to do is when you're on a web page, just select the information you want to have highlighted. The box will pop up, pick the color you want it, and then you can click on it to add a note. So let's see, maybe a student said, oh, this is freedom of religion. You can also change what the different colors mean. So I can go to settings here and I already changed it there to say, oh, pink is the rights that we have. But maybe for orange, I might put responsibilities. And now it'll save it to that particular folder. So I can go in and look in Weava and see all my rights, all my responsibilities as according to the Constitution.
Lovely.
Once you
Okay, next task, drafting or free writing or brainstorming, all in there. So it's the ability to get our ideas down on paper without worrying about formatting, grammar, or editing yet. This is the first step to writing. The component skills here, we have a lot of executive function skills. A lot of your learners aren't able to write not because they don't have writing ability or these complex thoughts that they could do, but just getting started is so huge. Or chunking the writing task into pieces, one of which of those pieces is drafting, can be hard for your students. Typing speed is another one. If your fingers can't keep up with your brain, it's really hard to draft things. You're just getting stuck trying to spell or sound out new words, syllabics. Again, it's slowing you down. And then, of course, there's just that freedom to fail, being okay with producing just anything for your first draft is kind of foreign to students. They want it to be good right from the start. And so sometimes they can't relax enough to write freely. So, what AT can help with drafting and free writing? Webs, and there's digital versions of these as well. Webs are graphic organizers. Well, a web is technically a type of graphic organizer. Voice to text. This is a big one and probably my favorite one. I use it with my students all the time. But just that ability to speak what you're thinking because you're not going to get slowed down then by how to spell or how to sound things out or your typing speed. Voice typing is the same thing as voice to text. Word prediction software, again, very useful for drafting or having those vocabulary banks. And focus apps, super important. Now, I already talked about focus apps, so I won't go into depth. Music can be good, letting our students listen to music as they write, but I would just encourage you to teach them to choose their music wisely. They want something where they can tune out the lyrics or there is no lyrics. They want something in a good number of beats per minute so it can keep them active but not frantic. So, it's worth diving into what music is helpful because I think your students don't realize that there's distinctions. Again, please, 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 please have noise canceling headphones and or earplugs in your classroom that are readily available for students that they're used to just using. Huge thing to get you into the zone and keep you in the zone when you're writing. Stay on track. So I used to use Speechify, which is a Chrome extension, but Speechify is a freemium one. And fun story, I wrote a book. I didn't publish it, so don't be too impressed. But I did finish a book, and as I was editing it, and I wanted to make sure that it was smooth, it was readable, I decided to use text to speech to listen to it. Well, I use Speechify, which is the Chrome extension, and the free voices are kind of robot-y. So then I wanted the premium version. And so I finally broke down and got the premium version. And when you do that, you get to pick your voices. And so Snoop Dogg read me my book. I picked Snoop Dogg. It was super fun. Anyway, random story. So, but the good news is you don't have to worry about Chrome extensions even anymore. Just straight up in Google Chrome, if you're using Docs, there's nowadays a voice typing option that's available. And so you don't even need to download anything to do this. But open Google Docs to get to it. Go to tools and choose voice typing, and then you turn on and off with the microphone option. So oh, guys, I just spent all that time talking about text to speech, and this is speech to text. Sorry, I flipped it on you, but speech to text is to help students draft. So here we go.
It is said that there are two hats writers must wear. The first is wild, brightly colored and plumed. It is the hat of the creative.
So you can see this is just me demoing using it, and it's just this microphone option that you just click on the microphone, and then you can speak into your mic and get that first draft of a writing down without worrying about typing speed. All right, lovely. Okay, last one, last task we're going to look at today is editing and proofreading. So, did you know spelling and grammar checkers are one of the most widely used ATs, and they're acceptable in virtually every college and workplace setting. So I think our students should really know how to use them. They should know what tools exist and how to use them effectively. So of course, there's the standard ones that just come equipped on Word or on Google Docs. You just have the grammar checkers, you just have the spell checkers. But there's also more complex ones, like one of the Chrome extensions is Pro Writing Aid, and it's great. So there's ones that do even more. So what is some AT to support editing and proofreading? Of course, dictionaries and thesauruses and spell check, like we were talking about in those grammar checkers. Um, and then readability checkers. So Pro Writing Aid, like I talked about, is not just spell check and grammar check. It does readability as well. And it's another freemium one where some of the suggestions are free and some are part of the paid higher version. But even the free version will do a lot for you. So super useful. Pro Writing Aid. That's one of the ones I use. Text to speech, I talked to you already about listening to Snoop Dogg read my book. That can help you edit. You hear awkward phrases, you hear typos, grammar errors, all kinds of things when you're doing text to speech. Okay, so rather than using Speechify, I actually suggest that you just use the new audio tool that is located inside of Google Docs. So it's not even a Chrome extension, it's just a part of Google Docs nowadays. And the reason why I say that is because it's the only free one I've found that does not have a robot voice at all. It's very natural sounding, and you don't need to add on any extensions or anything. So all you do is select tools and then audio and then listen to this tab. You're able to choose from a handful of very natural sounding speaking voices, and you can adjust that reading speed to 0.5 to 2 times the reading speed. So, interesting fact, if you have a student who complains that they can't focus when they read and they have ADHD, oh, I can't read because I have ADHD, listening to audiobooks more quickly on a higher reading speed can often help them to focus. So, they might even tell you, well, I can't even focus on the audiobooks. Try jacking up the speed. So with me, I can't focus on an audiobook unless I'm listening to it at least 1.5 speed. So it's something to try with a student. It can be a little groundbreaking. So, and you can do that on a YouTube video too, by the way. Okay, so I was going to demo this for you. So give me 1 second to get to it. Oh. So, fun story. As I was practicing again for this today, I found out that one of my Google accounts, I use 3 regularly, did not like using the audio tab, and the other 2 did. So, if for some reason it's not working, try signing into a different Google account for you. I'm not sure why that one didn't want to work, but anyway, under tools, I can just go to audio, listen to this tab.
Mathematical reasoning cannot be taught, a cautionary tale. Kate Redman. How idiotic to require education students to take this class, spat Professor G.
And we can just have it read to us. So nice. Love that. Very good for editing. Beautiful. Okay, look at that, you guys. So, quick recap of what we've talked about today. The tasks of reading and writing are composed of many composite skills and tasks. AT or assistive technology is any device that makes those tasks more manageable. There's lots of Chrome extensions, but there's just many handheld ones. There's so many different things you can use. Universal design for learning is the best practice. That means that AT is accessible for all, and your students can choose what they want to use instead of you choosing for them or adapting what you're doing in order to meet the needs of just one student. And Chrome extensions are apps that can be added to Google Chrome to modify or enhance the user experience. So we can use those Chrome extensions in order to UDL, our classroom. And by the way, I didn't really mention this, but if you have everything you do, including printouts, available in an online format as well, so your students know where to access them and can go to them, they can use their Chrome extensions. So that's important. Don't just give handouts, right? Your students should be able to access things electronically as well, so they can use all their tools. And there are free and low cost assistive technologies for about every reading and writing skill you can think of. Beautiful. Now we've got a lot of resources for you in the handbook. So like I said, that one's already up on the website. But otherwise, we are done for the day. So if you could give IPDAY your feedback, we're going to put a little poll up on the screen. I would really appreciate that. That's how we are able to continuously improve and give you guys good materials that you can use in your classrooms. So go ahead and open the poll. And while you guys are doing the poll, I'll remind you that we have another webinar coming up just tomorrow. It's the Wednesday webinar. It is at 3 p.m. and Eastern Time, and it's called Stick the Landing, Contextualized Instruction. If you're interested in that, you can register on the IPDAY website calendar. And otherwise, thank you guys so much. Really appreciated how interactive you were today. And thank you for teaching me about some new tools. All right, you guys, bye-bye.